Why did you increase your stake in Kao to 6.64%?
I continue to think the company is extraordinarily cheap to its potential. And so it's got this phenomenal global brands, not focusing on who the customers are, not focusing on how to make productive R&D, and most importantly, not focusing on productive marketing.
Investing in marketing is the critical problem.
I think that's the core.
Most of the local companies here, then management, they don't appreciate any advice from the outsider. That's kind of the barrier.
Still, the general knowledge is so low. So we've given out hundreds of copies of books, right, to help them increase their knowledge base, both in terms of financial, what leverage they should have, and both in terms of buybacks and timing of buybacks, and if you have the best investments. And sometimes companies do M&A of companies that are far more expensive than their own company. There's still an education to do that.
Why did you increase your stake in Kao to 6.64%?
I continue to think the company is extraordinarily cheap to its potential.
How do you call Kao sleeping giant?
It is a sleeping giant.
It is.
And it's even almost deeper in sleep. And they made some small changes, but in terms of valuation, I think it's even cheaper. And so it's got this phenomenal global brands. It could be a global competitor. And yet it's led, I think, largely by leadership who's not focused on it. They're asleep. Right? And the Hasebe in particular is asleep at the wheel of not interested in the core business, not focused on who the customers are, not focused on how to make productive R&D, and most importantly, not focused on productive marketing. And so he has quotes and statements of saying, hey, you know what, our best businesses out there don't invest in marketing. What are you talking about? Best business out there selling everything from iPhones through Coca-Cola, a fantastic business. They invest in an enormous amount of marketing.
Exactly.
What are you talking about? P&G and Unilever and their competitors invest an enormous amount of marketing.
Absolutely.
Joe Malone invests an enormous amount of marketing. We're not even talking in the same language.
Investing in marketing is the critical problem.
I think that's the critical.
My specialty is, of course, marketing.
Basically.
So when I first see their proposal to the Kao some years ago, I 100% fully agree, which is almost all what we are doing in the Nestle as a kind of the routine. For example, one of the good examples is they are pointed out the long tail of the too many SKUs, right? To be honest, interesting. This is somehow related to the Japanese non-marketing Japanese economy in this country, historically, even now. And even in the retail side, they don't have enough marketing. That's the reason why, even though when we try to take the more shelf space, share of the market is important. In Japan, it has nothing to do with it. Only number of the SKU. That's the reason why local companies, even confectionery, we are selling in Japan, Kikan, and worldwide number one at this moment. But we have the only one brand, and other local competitors, they have more than 50, 100. That's the reason why they can have the more shelf space. That's why I have to increase the SKU by one single SKU KitKat, by limited edition strategy and so on and so forth. But anyway, so that's the reason why their lineup, SKU, we see it is very clear. Only 1/3 of the SKU making a lot of money, but the rest is nothing.
The rest is negative growth.
Negative. So that's the reason why every year, Nestle, for example, we are cutting the 10% SKU every year. Otherwise, we have the long tail. We create naturally. That's the reason why the P&G, for example, or Unilever, their profit margin level is maybe 20% or more, the P&G. Unilever, 17, 18%. But Kao is only 7-8%, as I mentioned, half. Then how they can battle enough with such two giants in the global market? That's you're pointed out.
Exactly. If you have too many SKUs, you can't invest in your core brands. You can't market them better. You can't focus on them better. You can't make sure the packaging is better. You can't make sure that your shelf space is better. You can't make sure that your campaigns and spend all your money on your core highest margin. And so they were missing that. And they were not even optimistic or kind of aggressive in what their growth plans, even for the core. Now they moved down to core 6. Even though there's core 6, they weren't kind of driving it.
Currently, Kao is doing is just exactly in line with what you are talking about, right? Interesting. So that's it. Why not they are shaking hands each other?
So why is there such a huge perception gap between Kao's management and the Oasis management?
Interesting, because currently they're cutting the unprofitable SKUs and so forth, and they divest the kind of the unnecessary asset and so on and so forth. That's all in line with what they are proposing. Oh. I think their first kind of the attitude to the Oasis management looks very funny. But I understand most of the local companies here, then management, they don't appreciate, to be honest, any advice from the outsider. That's kind of the barrier.
I have a great story, not from Kao, but from a different, incredibly successful Japanese consumer brand. And every time we engage in a company, invest in a company, engage with a company, we say, look, we'll do it privately. We'd prefer to have a private engagement to help them grow. Their success is our success. Nobody needs to know that it was our ideas. We're happy to take the credit and have the growth. We'll perform with the company's performance. We send very long letters to companies. We sent them a long letter of they should focus on their core brands, get rid of the other SKUs, get rid of the other kind of auxiliary money-losing businesses or kind of marginal businesses under ROE or very low ROEs, and double, triple down on their core great business, right? And actually use some of their old IP. In this case, KitKat does that and kind of like limited edition kind of stuff, but take some of their old IP and make it fashionable again. Yeah. So you don't have to spend anything in R&D, you just have it there. And I think there's a lot of demand for it. Yeah. So we sent him a long letter. And the Sacho goes and he told me this story. He says, you know what? I was very upset when you sent me the letter. I was very angry. And I went home and I told my wife, do you have any idea? Oasis sent us its letter. It's like really bad. Like I'm really upset. And she said, are they right? And he says he went to bed very upset. And in the morning, he said, Ohio gozaimasu. He's like, what is his wife? He says, you know what? You're right. They're right. Like, I'm upset. You're right. They're right. Are they right? Oasis is right. We should do everything they asked. And he's done everything they asked. Their revenues are up 7 times. Right? Their net income is actually up 8 times. Right? Stock price is up something like 6 times. Right? 6 times. Right? Over a couple of years. So the business is so much better off. Everybody's better off. Right? And I've not mentioned the name of the company because he deserves all the credit. I'm happy for him to get all the credit. So yes, I think unfortunately often it's ego. Like who are you to ask me anything or tell me anything? Kao has made some changes we've asked for. There's a lot more changes they should do. There's a lot more speed they should do it at. And they still haven't hired a chief marketing officer. How could you be a consumer brands company without a chief marketing officer? Right? They still haven't fully focused and breaded on like social media marketing. They haven't done like the cheap stuff even in terms of they don't even do. A lot of their brands don't have their own websites. A lot of their brands, their websites, the links don't work to websites to buy their products. They're not even in a lot of retail outlets that they should be on. They haven't done kind of e-commerce well. They haven't done kind of many parts of AI in terms of beauty, right? Much well. So there's an enormous amount of things they should still be doing, as well as they should have a really good functioning board that holds management accountable.
Why do you believe Kao will win globally if they fix marketing weakness?
I think there's a very good roadmap for others with great similar products. And we've spoken to all their competitors, right? Either current or former people. And you know what they tell us privately? We would change our products with Kao any day of the week. Their products are better than ours. Their actual core product is better than ours. We're just better at executing. Right. And there's a lack of execution. So I believe that actually, I listen to them. They have great products. They could be global leaders. They just need better management to execute it and assistance to execute it.
No, but this is also kind of the history in Japan after World War II, when we started kind of the American capitalism here in Japan and set up the company, but we lost the World War II. Then at that time we were so poor, developing market. Nobody had money. Of course, we have no investors in the local market. That's the reason why normally foreign giant comes in. But at that time, the government don't appreciate that. That's the reason why they decided that at that time the banks have to play a role of the, investors. So that's why, and after that, Japan growing so fast because the first population every year, 101 million population is growing in the next 50 years until the bubble economy. So in this sense, if we produce it, it's selling. So comparing to now, completely different world at that time. Well, that's why Japanese, most of the local companies don't have any pressure from the outside of the market, local big players. That's why even now, the P&G is not number one. Nestle is not number one. Coca-Cola is not number one. Even ASEAN Brown Boveri is not number one. Even people don't know the name of the ASEAN Brown Boveri, right? So that's the reason. So in this sense, that's the main reason why most of the local companies don't install their marketing in the center in the management. Okay, so that's why manufacturing company, for a very good example, mostly sales oriented or manufacturing oriented. And as a matter of fact, quality is really good. Okay, sales side is okay, but there's no marketing. So that's kind of the weakness. And then I really think that we should admit that because we Japanese are really humble. And I think this is so respectful. I like it. And I'm proud of it. But only for this, why activists advise something, why we should admit it? Not necessarily all, but we need to have the ear to listen to, right? This is the humbleness. But interestingly, for this, people have the very much reaction. But interestingly, now the Kao is improving a lot. But because of their Oasis management proposal first, this is kind of the trigger. And that's a good thing. That's why I think we should utilize their presence and proposal.
As you said in the other interviews, that more than 90% of dialogues are constructive, privately. And why companies like Kao or Kobayashi Pharmaceutical has a more, confrontational?
You should ask the same. We went in privately. We want to engage privately, and no dialogue. You know how many times I met Hasebe?
Oh, yeah.
Only online, not in person. You know how many times? We're an incredibly large shareholder. I'd like to meet him and have a real, genuine dialogue. I'd like to meet deep detail. First one was for 45 minutes scheduled, and I'd like to meet him today. I mean, it's right here. We're in Tokyo. Let's get together today. And so instead, they're like, it's like once a year, and it's not even meaningful dialogue. It's 25 minutes of a script, and then 35 minutes of, nothing substantial. And the conversation is not like, I'm like, great, who are your customers? How are you getting to your customers? You know what? They do incredibly little data on how to figure out who their customers are. It's incredibly important to know who your customers are. And so we're talking past each other. Yeah. I'd love to have meaningful dialogue. I'd be happy to talk to them every week.
You said Kao doesn't understand its consumers. It's too straightforward.
Well, it's talking about marketing, right?
So to start with marketing, you want to know who your consumers are. Right. And then you want to figure out how to reach them. And there's lots of great new technologies in it. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's great kind of AI-driven technology of like, we could do marketing specific to you and marketing specific to you. Like literally specific to you. And in beauty products, this is something today, not even last year, that with AI, we can literally look at you as a person and do marketing to you. Maybe you need this type of beauty product. Maybe you need something else. Maybe I need a lot more beauty products. Right? But, and so there's a lot more potential there.
Sure.
So knowing who your customer is incredibly important. Just telling me 50% of the customers in beauty products are male is ridiculous.
Are you going to make in the next shareholders meeting on March 30?
I have not made proposals this year. I have engaged with them and sent the company a significant risk that they have in terms of some risk management issues, supply chain issues that is potentially damaging to the company that I'd like a third party independent investigation of. And I'm going to ask shareholders to vote for that independent investigation, fully independent. We've had a whistleblower came forward to us about some significant issues that I think are potentially very damaging to the company. We've had an investigation of those issues. That investigation came back with saying that those issues are true. By the time this airs, not today, this will probably be public. Right? And at that stage, there'll be an investigation of something that Hasebe in particular, but a couple of people in senior management are directly responsible for. That is a key part of the supply chain. We've been very focused on that. I'm open to dialogue with them about the business, but we did not propose directors this year. They have, to their credit, gone ahead and nominated a new person from Google, which is great. They have not nominated a new CMO, but at least they've started to get involved in tech, and which presumably would have better digital marketing.
You look like a journalist, investigative journalist.
No,
Is that a job offer?
yeah.
What's your opinion?
Fisher channel is going to be a booming here in Japan, right?
Influential YouTuber. Okay. So, let's move on to the Kobayashi Pharmaceutical case here. What's the biggest problem of this company?
This is a great case study of a lack of a board that's going to hold management accountable. There's been now 12 scandals in terms of products and significant recalls in terms of products. The 10th of those scandals was Benikoji. Right? The name of our campaign is Culture Grows in a Mold. A mold grows in a culture. There's a poor culture there of actually health and safety, which should be the paramount issue for them. And there's poor culture of the management going ahead and the board going ahead and holding management accountable. And so what's going on here? It's another similar situation to Kao. We're asking the Kobayashi family, right, to go ahead and say, hey, we'd like to meet you, right? And we've not had any meetings with them. That's a theme. We've asked numerous times.
Really?
0 meetings. He's very busy paying back and working on paying back or paying compensation to victims. You don't have any time. You don't have 1 hour to talk to us. And even when you're doing that, why are you still there? And it's clear that even management wanted to get more independence of the family, and it's clear even the family has more and more influence. And so there's no real independence in the family.
They appointed a new CEO, new Kaicho, and appointed Mr. Otter, who saved Zhao. Is it not enough?
I think the family still has enormous amount of influence. What are they doing being Koman? What is Kobayashi, Akihiro Kobayashi still doing on the board? Here he's saying, Gomenasai, take responsibility, but responsibility means leaving the company. You have the NIDEC now, the Nagamori-san has fully left the company, even the honorary chairman.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a typical difficulty of the corporate governance by family-owned company and family. If the family is the number one biggest shareholders, it's extremely difficult for even their board meeting doesn't have enough power. I'm not 100% quite sure, but in the U.S., for example, among the independent board members, they may appoint the lead independent board, and who has the right to call up the kind of the only independent board member meeting in order to fight against with their owner, biggest shareholder. I think that kind of the system also have to be installed here in Japan in order to improve their corporate governance, especially for such a successful owner company, right? Because even Kobayashi Seiyaku, this company is one of the most marketing-oriented company before, right? That's because of the owner, his father. and Nakamura-san as well. I so personally respect him. But once they made such a big success, they are 100% becoming the naked king, so-called, right? So nobody can oppose or against. Nobody advise him. So that's the reason why how we can, eliminate that kind of the situation. This is the kind of the essence of the corporate governance, I think.
Checks and balances are incredibly important.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want a little emperor,
Right.
you need to have checks and balances.
Yeah.
So in the US, you do have this phenomenon where you have a CEO, a visionary founder, start a company. But you typically have an fully independent board or kind of a majority independent board that acts as one degree of check. You also have a very robust judiciary. That's another degree of a check. And so if the visionary founder did something that abused the minority shareholders, they can sue him. Here in Japan, and I'm in court with the Kobayashi family and the directors as well for breach of their fiduciary duty. It just takes a very long time here. And it's been it's very hard court processes. There's only one case that I'm aware of in the last 25 years where directors are found liable. In the US, directors are found liable far, far, far more. Make sure that also the directors feel a sense of guts to go ahead and speak out and say no and feel a sense of responsibility because they're worried about getting sued. In Japan, they're not really worried about getting sued because you haven't had cases of it. Once they get sued and found guilty and have to pay, then Kobayashi is a great case of it, where the board had noticed. This wasn't the first time. This was the 10th time they've had an issue, right? So they had notice of it. They should have a good reason to cause, and they should have taken action beforehand to prevent it, and afterward they should have taken proactive action. So that's a breach of fiduciary duty. Once you start finding directors guilty of when they are guilty of or breach duty, for civilly, I'm not talking about criminally, but pay money out of their pockets, then it'll serve as a message for all other boards. To go ahead and say, you know what, we need to take our responsibility more seriously.
You have already have a lawsuit against Kobayashi Pharmaceutical.
We do.
Can you win?
I think it's incredibly important to win for the sake of shareholders in Kobayashi. It's a derivative lawsuit. It's for the sake of the company, as well as for the sake of the message to all other boards.
So what's the next step to reform Kobayashi Pharmaceutical?
Look, we're in the middle of a court cases here, but we have other tools we're going to use as well.
Maybe in the U.S., they have the kind of the call action system, which means massive number of the shareholders make a lawsuit.
Right.
But here in Japan, all individual. So that means you are only rich company or
That's right.
person can do it, but other people just silent. This is another one of the problem which in Japan, the board meetings, shareholders' rights cannot be enough protected.
Part of the ecosystem in the States, which I think is very, very powerful, is that you don't just need, look, we're doing it because we have enough capital to do it, and so we're pursuing it, but what goes on in the States is you have class action lawsuits, which means that you have aggressive lawyers, the power of capitalism, the power of self-interest in this case, of all these different law firms going ahead and filing suit. You could say it's gone to an extreme in the States, but it's much more robust to be in that extreme than none of it. There's another example. Maybe the ideal is 6, and the US is a 10, and Japan is a 1, in terms of like the power of the judiciary and class action lawsuits. Maybe it should be a 7. We can argue about those. But the class action lawsuit means lawyers go ahead and say, we're gonna find 1 or 2 people, and if we sue, it's on behalf of everybody. Right? And they get appointed, and so they go ahead and just and deeply investigate, act like investigative journalists, deeply investigate the issues, and then go ahead and file suit. We do it occasionally in the States. Right? In Japan, when we think there are egregious cases, like Kobayashi, like Katsui no Yoki, right? Other cases where minority shareholders and we're all victim of really bad governance, then we can go ahead and file a suit. And that's what we've done at Kobayashi.
Another problem, how do we cultivate professional managers in Japan?
The board's job is to hold management accountable. The board needs far more training to understand what their duties are. So if you can go ahead and mandate next round of the corporate governance code changes, for example, you'd go ahead and have, teaching them what fiduciary responsibilities are. Teaching them what, every year, have an hour and 1 or 2 hours on fiduciary responsibility, 1 or 2 hours on industry knowledge, 1 or 2 hours on financial accounting. They often don't know financial accounting. 1 or 2 hours on other kind of compliance procedures or whistleblowing procedures or kind of other best practices in the industry. That'd be 6 to 8 hours of training that the board should do every year. Right? And that will increase the education. Now, that doesn't solve all the problem, but that's a start.
Once again, historically, Japan win after the World War II in terms of the global competition anyway, as I mentioned. But at that time, what is the asset for Japan? Because good quality of the labor, to be honest. right? And the cost was lower. At that time, all the labor population have the 100% literacy. This was rare. Western countries installed the immigration system. So that's the reason why at that time we could win the competition by the good quality of the labor, not necessarily top management quality. We have the bubble economy, but at that time, actually, Japanese management people denied their MBA system, for example, business school. But on the contrary, Western market, at that time, they never win in the quality of the labor. In the gemba, the factory level, for example. So that's the reason why they try to create the elite in the white collar. That's why they invested heavily the business school. So that's kind of the historical reason we have some sort of a level of the management side, Japan and other markets. And because, many of the new shacho here in Japan, my question is how many people can perfectly understand the balance sheet? No, to be honest. That's the point. But I really expecting the new management here in Japan, even though more and more people graduating from the,
It's getting better. The good news is it's getting better.
Yeah.
So now I think we've just surpassed that 10% of sachos are former CFOs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's like a good stance. But still the general knowledge is so low. So we've given out hundreds of copies of books, right? To like help them increase their knowledge base, right? Both in terms of financial, what leverage they should have, and both in terms of like buybacks and when timing of buybacks, and if you have the best investments. And sometimes companies do M&A of companies that are far more expensive than their own company.
Yeah.
Right? So there's still education to be done.
In that sense, activists are like coaches, teachers.
No, I think it's a good trigger. We have to understand it. We have to learn more.
Our meetings with companies are like, by the way, would you buy a business that's growing at 15%, that's trading at 4 times EV/EBITDA, that is trading at 8 times earnings, that has great management? Would you buy that business?
Yeah.
And you ask them, they say, absolutely. I said, well, I have a great idea for you. Buy your own stock.
Yes. But by the way, now, the lucky enough we have the AI. I'm learning a lot. My 80% of the conversation with Gemini or ChatGPT, then I can learn a lot immediately. So that's the reason why not necessarily going to the business school, it takes the time and costly, but if we want to learn, we can learn.
What advice would you give to the next generation of Japanese leaders who aspire to change Japanese corporate society?
Humility is incredibly important.
Humility.
And I think
I agree.
humility balanced with guts. So you need both. Right? You want to be incredibly humble, right? And realize that you don't know everything, right? And be a continuing life learner. You're learning here about AI, and we're learning about all these things. So be curious.
Right?
At the same time, you be curious. You need to balance that curiosity and humility, right, with also guts to do things.
Why do you have so much guts? You are so energetic and mentally and also physically very tough.
I think the stakes are really high, and this is incredibly important. And so if you're driven with a goal, then you should have an enormous amount of energy to do it.
What's your goal?
Look, in this case, there's transformation of an enormous amount of great businesses in Japan that produce a great outcome for everybody, for all stakeholders. Great outcome for the employees, great outcome for the management, great outcome for the suppliers, and a great outcome for the shareholders. And yes, we could do this that has a great outcome for everybody involved and our investors. It gives me great joy to be able to do this and meet people in the factory floor, in the gemba, right? And meet people in management and saying like, thank you so much, this is great. And go ahead and be a more productive part of society. Maybe I have a little role to play. And I want to fulfill that role that I've been able to, that maybe God has given me.
Yeah, I fully agree. And whenever we try to do something new, we have to deal with so many kind of the problems, and the constraints. and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why we need the guts. Otherwise we cannot do anything, right? So whenever I see him, I'm always so much, stimulated. And once you talk about testosterone,
Yes.
right? That's important in order to fight against it. And I'm free.
That's a hormone. That's a hormone.
But my age, less and less. Anyway. But anyway, mostly we, Japan and Japanese, just, return back. Even after the World War II, we completely lost everything. So that's the reason I strongly believe that Japanese basically is really strong. And we also need the guts. And we also humble. So why not? We should win. We cannot win. Right? So that's the reason why we really listen to diverse opinion like him. Then we have to go forward.
Why do you persist in reforming Japanese companies? Do you feel some sense of mission beyond just profits?
I do feel a sense of mission.
Sense of mission.
I do feel honored to be able to play a role. And that's incredibly satisfying. And when you see companies that have been incredibly successful and everybody benefits, I mean, then you're part of building something meaningful. It's great. It's great for everybody.
He's a great fan of Japan anyway.
Oh, really? Okay. What part of Japan do you like?
Japan is amazing.
Amazing.
Amazing. Countryside is gorgeous. For me, it's great to go for a run in the countryside, in the mountains somewhere. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Going to see little towns all over Japan is just gorgeous. Right? There's enormous amount of Japan to be proud of. Right? There's a phenomenal culture. There's a phenomenal culture of honesty. There's a phenomenal culture of kind of taking incredibly great care of things, right? Of preserving things. That's amazing. Right? And yes, that's an incredible export as well. And Japanese food is incredible export as well. And so you'd like to see more of the world have like a social order that is so civil and so respectful of each other. That is something that the West should be very humble about to learn from Japan.
So final question. If Japan restores its competitiveness, what kind of contribution can Japanese companies make to the world?
The more products that are made at the best price, I mean, this is a richer world. It means that you can provide better health care for people around the world. It means you can provide better savings. It means you can provide better education. It means that the level of the world's quality of life goes up. So if Japan is able to fulfill its mission by using their competitive advantages, then it improves everybody's quality of life. Everybody's quality of life. What you described historically is post the war, Japan had the wind at its back. Right? There was a boom of babies. Right? They had guidance from the banks. Right? And that was a tailwind. Right? And then Japan now has a bit of a headwind. It has a headwind from a demographics point of view. It has a headwind from a lack of kind of humility and aggression, kind of that right balance there. But some of these are fixable. You have to, if you have the right humility and aggression together, right? Then they can play a great role in terms of retirement for a lot of Japanese, a lot of Japanese society, and in terms of exporting that to the rest of the world.
As he said, but every country has the kind of the problem, and in Japan, we have the less births, and that's the reason why we are aging country the most. And the labor population is declining. All the innovation is coming from that solution. So that's the reason why Japan, we have the very unique problem ahead from anyone else. That's the reason why once we can solve it, we can run faster. But that's the greatest opportunity which Japan has.
There's a ton of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
ピボットでは新たなメンバーを募集しています。特に営業と映像制作を担うメンバーを積極採用中です。募集の詳細につきましては概要欄の URL をご覧ください。ぜひ一緒に日本をピボットしましょう。